the New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and today we have Sam Wood joining us. Welcome to the show, Sam. First time?
First time, Paul, yeah, and really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's not very often we let Australians on the show.
Well, I'm Australian. I'm also not that techie. I feel like I'm lucky to be in here.
So maybe just to give listeners a little intro, why you might be on the New Zealand Tech Podcast.
So I started my own online nutrition and training business, 28 by Sam Wood, just over 8 years ago in Australia, and we have now had over 1 million people join my platform, join my program in that 8 years from all over the world, predominantly Australia, but organically it's sort of spread all over the world. And we're now sort of testing the water in other markets and really excited. We've already got a few thousand New Zealand 28ers, as we call them, and they've always said, why don't you come over here and give it a bit more of a push? There'd be so many New Zealanders that could benefit. So here we are, and it's great to chat to you.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing your story. We often hear from sort of the technologists, the people that are deeply involved in the technology. But in your case, you've really figured out how to leverage technology well, not being a technologist yourself. I'm really interested to delve into that. Before we jump in, big thank you to our show partners, to 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark HP, and Gorilla Technology. So in terms of your story, bit of background. Where'd you grow up, and how how did you end up? I guess health and fitness has been a big part of your career. So where did that all fit together?
Yeah, it's been a journey, that's for sure. People sort of say, overnight success when they see the final product, when something finally pops, but it definitely hasn't always been the case. I'm from Tasmania originally, grew up in Hobart, moved across to Melbourne when I was 20 to do my exercise science degree and start working in gyms and as a personal trainer, and absolutely loved it. Loved working with people, loved working out the best sort of personalised way to be able to help them the most, not just in the sessions, but outside of those sessions from an accountability perspective and nutrition and sleep and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd done that for 6 years. And then when I was 26, I've always sort of been relatively entrepreneurial, and I wanted to start my own business. So I launched Australia's first ever kids gym called Gecko, and we'd do after school programs and birthday parties and sports camps and junior Gecko for 3 to 5 year olds. And I loved it. And we had, 400 kid members between the ages of 3 and 14 within months. But it was always the challenge from a business perspective of trying to scale that, trying to open more centres with success and keep that quality control. And it was really challenging. And we started by licensing our kids' fitness programs similar to a Les Mills, after school programs that go into gyms, and you'd give them the equipment kit and train the trainers, and there'd be manuals and all that kind of stuff. But it was very dependent on the coach. If the coach left and they employed someone else to replace them who you never had direct contact with, the quality of the programming really dropped. And so we pivoted and went to a franchise model where we, instead of licensing it to the gym, we sold the franchise to the actual person. So we'd have personal trainers or PE teachers or whatever it might be doing that. And that was a lot more successful. We had 35 franchises around Australia. Then that was all going along, and then kind of out of nowhere, I got selected in Australia to be the Bachelor, which it's probably not what your viewers are used to hearing about.
Well, the funny thing is we have had another Bachelor on.
You have. There you go. Well, I never.
I don't know how this happens, but anyway.
You've let us in again.
There we go.
Who would have thought? Well, that surprises me. And I got selected to be the Bachelor in Australia in 2015, which was the 3rd season of The Bachelor down there. And I'd never seen the show. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I'd sort of been put forward by some friends to apply to go on it, and just to appease them, I'd sort of said, all right, to keep you guys quiet, I'll do it. And out of nowhere, I got the gig, and then it was sort of that fork in the road moment of, if I don't do this, I'll always wonder what if and probably regret it. So I dived in the deep end, and lo and behold, I met this incredible girl from the other side of Australia called Snejana, who had a 9-year-old daughter, and we're now married and we have 3 more daughters. So we've got 4 girls, and it's just been the best thing that I ever did. But from a business perspective, it really boosted both Snez and my profile. You know, I remember sort of sitting there, I think pre-Bachelor, we had 600 Instagram followers between us. And within literally a few days, as the show went to air, or the finale went to air, we went to 600,000 followers on social media. And I'd be inundated with direct messages across different social media channels saying, Sam, I know you've been into fitness, and can you write me a program or whatever. And I'd always looked at a couple of other online fitness programs and thought, God, that's amazing, the reach that they get and how many people they can help. And it's not just from their local community, it's either Australia-wide or worldwide.
Yep.
And I just admired it, both from a business perspective, but also just the ability to help so many people. And so we gave it a crack. And on 2016, 1st of Feb, we launched 28 by Sam Wood, my online fitness and nutrition program. At that stage, it was just a website. People would sign up for a month, $50 a month, on an ongoing subscription. They get all their workouts, their recipes. I'd send them videos every day from a motivation and education perspective. But it was a bit clunky. You know, we'd use Facebook community groups, and they were logging onto their website, you know, a bit of an older audience, sort of 40 plus.
Yeah.
But it just exploded. We had 5,000 subscribers in the first month, and I was like, holy crap, there's something special here.
So to lay those sort of foundations and to get launched, you know, often there can be different approaches people take to deciding on the technology platforms and so on to underpin it. Sometimes it's just like, look, we want to get going and we'll just get started with whatever.
Yeah.
Other times it's like, look, we need to spend a couple of years and to sort of build all the technology, you know, foundations and so on. And, you know, often the best result is kind of some sort of hybrid.
Yeah.
How did you figure that stuff out? Someone that wasn't a technologist, as to, you know, what sort of approach and so on, like who were you working with? Who else was
so
was
worked
on
with a little tech group who sort of built out websites, built out sort of pretty user-friendly platforms. I was really heavily hands-on with the features that I wanted, the features that I didn't want.
Yeah.
Really focused on keeping it simple. I was probably a bit too much of a perfectionist. I remember early on in that sort of stage, someone sort of saying to me, look, mate, I know you want every button to be in the right place and, you know, every color, and you're going to eat a lot of money and a lot of time if you fixate on that stuff. You know, it only needs to be an 8 out of 10, and then you evolve it. You know, you just got to get it to the market and see what the market says. You know, like if you launch perfectly, you launch too late type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so that was
hard.
That was the case for you. You had to let go a little bit on some of those things.
I did. Yeah, that was a leap of faith, and I, you know, wasn't. I mean, it's funny. You always look back at what you first launched with and go, "Oh my God!" You know, 8 years later, how could we have gone to market with something so basic? But thank God we did. You know, we did. We've always been very customer centric. You know, the evolution of the features, the evolution of the content. You know, even the platforms and the way that we stream it. You know, allowing people to stream it through their TVs for comfort of doing the workouts in their lounge room. Different channels that we talk to people on to allow them to not only connect to us, but connect to other 28ers that might be in their communities. You know, it's a lot of what we have done over an 8-year journey has been driven by the customer. And I think that's boded really well for us.
Yeah, it's often a challenge to get that customer experience right.
Yeah.
And I think all of us could, you know, think of so many scenarios where things aren't, you know, very customer centric. In fact, I had a interaction with a government entity in the last week or so, actually, and yeah, I jumped on. It was our, and I don't want to, upset anybody that works in the Inland Revenue Department here. But the reality was the experience I was trying to, step through, was an absolute shocker.
Yeah.
And there were probably 90% of it was probably awesome. But of course, you hit that sort of 10, 20%, that's painful. And it can, just ruin the whole experience. And I imagine that's probably been part of your journey, is sort of tweaking and improving those things along the way. Sounds like you've come a long way from where you started out with your original, technology and the ease of use. Seems to have got, you were talking about, maybe being a little bit uncomfortable with some of the caps initially. But I was looking at your app on the iPhone app in the App Store there, 4.9 stars. There's plenty of things that these days I'll come across and it's got like a 2.3 or something. You think, what? This is a global company, and they're not rated very well. So how have you gone on that? How have you gone on that journey? I guess that's part of the evolution of 28 as a business that's got bigger, and you've been able to tap into sort of more and more resources with the growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we didn't know who our customer was going to be. We didn't know what features they were going to gravitate towards, what features they would have no interest in, what content they'd like. We really let them drive it. And I guess two things that I think really set us up for long-term success, because there was always, there's a bit of imposter syndrome when it all first started. From my perspective, I was a bit, this has really taken off. Do I belong here? It could all end tomorrow. I didn't feel like it was secure a little bit, from a business owner who'd kind of gone from earning, a couple $100,000 a year as a really good personal trainer, but turning over millions of dollars in subscription revenue in a few months was a real sort of shock to the system. But what we did was made sure that we understood what my strengths were and understood what my weaknesses were, and got good people to fill those weaknesses, people that I could trust, people that worked in-house, people we could talk to. Almost felt like I needed a bit of a tech interpreter, if you like. So when we were building out new features or deciding, does it go from website to app? How do we do that? Do we do that in-house? Do we use an agency? Having a right-hand person sitting there with me to really be able to break that stuff down, put in layman's terms for me. And I'd always look at it through the customer lens, and they'd always look at it through the tech lens, and we'd just have to make sure that there was a good marriage there. I'd always be, okay, how's this going to change the customer experience? All I care about is the customer experience, and cost within reason. But, I remember thinking, we're turning over pretty good money. It's absolutely critical, though, that I reinvest that money to make sure I was thinking back then in 2 years' time, we're still around, let alone in 8. So, back then there was only a couple of online fitness programs. There was Michelle Bridges, who was sort of website only, and there was Kayla, who's now Sweat. Sold her business for $400 million last year or 2 years ago. And
these are Australian,
both Australian, but she's she got a very big global presence. She got bought by a US fitness equipment company for $400 million 2 years ago. And I'd sort of look at those and go, okay, where do we sort of sit in the market? And we were finding that because we're an at-home fitness program, lots of our customers were female, 90% female. They were asking for certain things. And so we didn't try and be everything to everybody. We made sure we invested a lot in our people and in our tech evolution. And we listened to that customer and gave them what they were asking for. If you want pregnancy programs or evolution of our eating plans, or you want the ability to Chromecast your workouts onto your TV so you can do it from further away while your baby's crawling on the mat, that's what we'll give you. And, I remember when I started the kids' gyms and we had sort of undulating levels of success, someone would say to me, oh, mate, you just can't clone yourself. And then with technology the way it was, and how smooth and seamless streaming was at that time when we launched in 2016, remember sort of sitting there one day going, I have cloned myself. I can send these people a message on how to read a nutrition label. I can give them advice on how much water to consume at the touch of a button. I can get on live forums and answer any question that these guys want in real time. I can do live workouts. I can, you name it. I've now got the ability, whether it's tapping into an existing platform or doing it through our own, to connect to tens of thousands of people every single day. And it just snowballed from there. But it was just this beautiful, exciting moment. I was like, I'm not a tech guy, but the way technology, like, it was blowing my own mind with my own business in real time a little bit. I was like, and I've always had this feeling of gratitude from a timing perspective, almost like, imagine if I went on The Bachelor 20 years earlier. Reality TV didn't exist 20 years earlier, but so I know that wouldn't have happened. But I just wouldn't have had the capability to do what I've always loved doing to so many people. I would have gone back to my gym and gone back to work. It was a beautiful sliding doors moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And so walking through, you talked about having sort of a interpreter on that tech front. So talk us through that. How did you find that sort of help? And
so we brought in a chief product technology officer who handled our relatively small team at that stage, working just with the website. Then it was a big decision to what we did from an app build perspective. We'd been a website for 2 years. We had 20,000 subscribers, but we knew to take things to a new level of speed, customer experience, connectivity, push notifications, all this stuff that works really well in a fitness space. An app was definitely needed. But we already had an existing business. We didn't want to stuff that up. So we actually took probably the safer, more expensive route, and we went with a really high-end agency, an agency called Two Bulls in Melbourne. And, we'd go in for our fortnightly sprints. I'd be intimately involved from a customer perspective with my CTO next to me from a tech perspective as we sort of navigated our way through that. The $500,000 quote ended up being double. It was very expensive. The $1 million app was built, but I was really proud of what we launched. And because our customers were relatively satisfied with their web experience, we didn't rush it too much. Again, we didn't wait forever to get it perfect, but we didn't tell them it was coming too early either, because it would have been, when is it? We waited till it was probably about 4 weeks away, and then we got them really excited and built a lot of hype, and it was a relatively smooth transition. And now we still have a website for those that want to stay there, but 88% of our users are on the app. It just makes it better for sign-ups, better for retention and churn. Better from a customer engagement perspective. The data that you can pull out of that is really, really powerful. You get it in real time. We use our data a lot, both from an engagement perspective, making sure people are getting off to the right start and learning what are they using, what are they not using, what should we be giving them more of. You don't even need to ask them these days. You can tap into that data with your data analyst, and you can learn stuff in real time and make changes really efficiently.
Yep. So if if we've got listeners that are sort of involved with coming up with, technology solutions, with building apps, websites and so on, from your perspective, sort of sitting across the table, what would be your advice in terms of how to work well with people that aren't necessarily, so deeply technical, the non-geeks such as yourself?
I think there were moments early on where I lost a bit of belief. I was like, this might all be a bit above my head from a tech perspective. So I think surrounding yourself with, it's okay to not be the smartest person in that room. In fact, you probably shouldn't be. You need people you can trust. And it's actually okay that your skill set might be on the other side of the table, because often that's where their weakness is. That's where their blind spot is. If you just said to a tech only person, obviously if you go into an agency, they should have sort of good people in customer experience and, all that kind of stuff, and you should be pretty well sorted. But if you've just got the builder on the other side of the table, the developer, they can often miss those key customer, human elements.
Yeah.
And I think it's when you come together with those people, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah,
So don't necessarily be worried by your weakness. Embrace your strength and fill in the weakness with people that are better at that part of what you're not good at, I think, is my advice.
Yeah. Any particular sort of challenges that stand out from sort of going through that journey? I mean, you've mentioned about it costing twice as much than anticipated, and you're probably certainly not the first to have been through that type of scenario. And in your case, I mean, was it that things changed dramatically, or did you get a clear handle on why it became a lot more expensive than you anticipated, or was that a little bit hard to navigate?
It was partially my fault. I sort of didn't know what I wanted, and I was working it out on the fly, and therefore I was requesting lots of changes. My brief wasn't as clear as it should have been from the outset, so I was costing myself money and kicking myself for it. I probably felt like if we're going to launch with an app, it needs to be vastly different from our web experience. This needs to blow people's minds. And from launch, it probably didn't. That could have been something that evolved over time, and it could have been a lot cheaper and simpler to almost launch with something very similar to our web experience and build that out. I thought it needed to have running features and all this other kind of stuff that I'd seen on other apps, either in the fitness space or elsewhere, that I thought would lend themselves really well to us. I also think you get a bit caught up too with new technologies. Like sometimes you want a new feature for the sake of having a new feature, and it doesn't actually get used. It just tends to be something that has a bit of a cool factor, but it's not very practical to the user, but you think it needs to be in there.
Was there a particular example?
I got hell bent on this stupid geofencing thing, and people, it was I had this ridiculous idea in my head of you could sort of tell where people were so they could connect with each other, but which would have been a good feature, but catching up for runs on the weekends and that kind of thing. But then it was about, I don't know, I had this weird idea in my head, and this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous because it was quite far-fetched even at the time, of, you can tell if someone's going through a McDonald's drive-through, for example, and you could send them an alert on their phone saying, should you be making a better food choice, question mark, or something, as they went through the drive-through. It was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I was sort of like, what could we do here if we really sort of explored it? But it was, it was a nice to have. We scoped it out, and it was going to be a very, very time-consuming, expensive, nice to have, and we moved away from it. But we went down a few little rabbit holes that perhaps we shouldn't have gone down during the process.
Yeah. And did you end up with any geolocation types of, things like telling people we're at home or things like that, where you trigger things, or you just didn't end up using that?
No, we didn't. We're building more of that out now. It's a lot of what we do now is about enhancing personalization. So based on them answering some questions from an onboarding perspective, when we've now partnered with a DNA company, we had a bit of an exit event 2 years ago, which involved us merging with a DNA company, and we're looking at how you can use your DNA insights to really personalize your wellness experience by giving you customized eating plans, advice on caffeine, sleep, are you an endurance or power athlete, and then not just getting a report on that, but that being reflected in the programming that you get served without even thinking about it. You get power workouts because your body will respond better to those. You are advised on what time to go to bed, whether you're an early bird or a night owl. Some people genetically benefit from having caffeine pre-workout. Other people, it has a negative impact on their workout performance. So there's some really, really interesting science and DNA insights, but people don't really know what to do with them, and they're often given to people in a very hard to understand 6-page DNA insight report, rather than here's the practical applications of what this report is telling you, and you can actually press a button here and that will personalize your 28 experience based on your DNA insights. So that's something that we're building out. It's a bit of a next horizon thing happening at 28.
And I mean, that DNA front, it's an interesting, area. Obviously the technology's, really improved, and, the cost of doing DNA testing
that's been the game changer.
Reasonably accessible.
It used to be $1,000 only a couple of years ago to do a test, and it was a bit intrusive for people, and you'd get your results back 6 weeks later. It's now a saliva swab on the cheek. You get your results in about a week, and it costs under $100. So I think something, and we've all been through COVID and done millions of those tests, and we're pretty comfortable doing it. And I think people are realising. It was also a lot of people that use it for ancestry or family tree history, or they'd use it for whether they were predisposed to get certain illnesses, but actually using it from a proactive wellness perspective with their nutrition and exercise hasn't really been done. So that's something we're super excited about.
So, looking at the data you get from that DNA testing side, how solid do you think that is? You were talking about, whether you're a morning person, a night person, and so on. And some people will start out one way, and then they'll make an effort to get up earlier, even though that maybe hasn't been the norm. What have you actually learned there? Do you think that's pretty hard coded, or is it one of those things?
No,
that
the DNA doesn't lie.
Well?
No, the DNA blueprint is who you are and who you will always be. That's who you are for life. Now, that's not to say if you're a power athlete you can't run a marathon. That's not to say if you're an early bird you shouldn't stay up late. There's obviously practicalities, but and I had this with my wife, she's quite nocturnal. I'm sort of up and at 'em early. And, I'd try and stay up later to help our relationship. And she'd be wide awake, get sort of frustrated at me for falling asleep at midnight. I thought I was doing a pretty good job. I wasn't going to bed at 7 o'clock. But just having that understanding that I was actually genetically an early bird, and that's why, that was powerful to me. So, okay, so I'm, let's meet a little bit earlier, and it doesn't mean I'm going to change, and doesn't mean you're going to change, but there's a way that we can find some medium ground here and make it work better. And I think it's the same from a power or endurance perspective. The food intolerance stuff's really interesting. I mean, the amount of time and effort and torture some people go through to work out certain foods that agree with them, certain foods that don't, hay fever medications that they should be on and shouldn't be on. There's all these practical health things that your genetic insights can just tell you the right path for you from scratch. And you can head down that path and save yourself a fair bit of time and effort. So it's not about turning your life upside down and being perfect, I don't think, but I think making smarter choices in line with your genetic makeup. I always sort of say to people, train smarter, not harder. And I think these kind of insights allow you to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I haven't seen too much, down that track. Something we've talked about for years, and what's the future of health and healthcare and so on. And it seems like most of it hasn't really arrived yet. So there's still that opportunity to really establish these things. So My DNA, which is as the company, walk us through what happened, because you've involved in a merger there. Australian Tech Life, My DNA, 28. Sort of walk us through that.
So holding company for 28 is Australian Life Tech, and we had a great business, and then during the COVID, we really exploded because we were already an at-home fitness option for people. Massive partnerships with some big health insurance companies, and you talk about things where you get caught off guard. We signed up with Bupa, which is the biggest health insurer in Australia. They got 4.5 million customers, and they said, look, we've identified a segment of our audience of about 1 million customers that we'd love to offer them 3 free months on your program to really help them during this really tough time of lockdowns in Australia. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to help. And we sort of said, look, how many do you anticipate would take it up? And they said, look, Maybe 10,000. So, we boosted our servers and got everything ready for this big influx of sort of 10,000 new customers in a sort of 48-hour period. And 130,000 of them joined in 3 days. So we're ramping up our servers and and it just went crazy. We had about 30,000 members and we went from 30,000 to 160,000 almost overnight. And it was just this great test of sort of the rigor of your tech and are you prepared to handle that many customers coming onto the platform at once. And we handled it and it was seamless and it was exciting. And, we obviously looked after them for free during COVID, but lots of them stayed on the platform and we're really grateful for what we'd done for them during that tough time. So we had a really, we still do have, it's even better now, but a really exciting business. And as it sort of naturally happens, not that, as a passionate founder who loves helping people in fitness, people always say, oh, you got to know what your exit looks like and selling your business. That wasn't really how I was wired, but a few inbound inquiries started to come in. So we thought, oh, well, we better take these seriously. And yeah, we sold the business for 82 million New Zealand dollars, 71 Australian, 2 years ago. So it was an amazing result. I still pinch myself. I can't even believe it sitting here talking to you, Paul, but I'm still at it. I went back to work the very next day and it's really, for me, the money is lovely to give you some security for your family, but it's about now with the resources that we have and the backing that we have, you sort of got Big Brother in your corner. What can we do from a international expansion perspective, new product perspective, evolving the app, from an AI and personalization perspective? We really want to customize that coach feel that you really do feel like you've got a coach or a nutritionist or a psychologist coaching you every step of the way, and they understand what makes you tick and how you like to be spoken to, and they can identify what behavior you're exhibiting based on certain communications and alerts that you're pushing to them. And it's just it's just helping people. I was always a bit cynical when I first started. Am I really going to be able to connect with people in a digital world the same way I do face-to-face with my clients at the gym? But it's even better because at the gym, they're wonderful when they're with you. But for the other, say they train with you twice a week, for the other 166 hours a week, you don't really know what they're up to. Are they eating right? Are they sleeping well? Are they going for walks? Are they recovering properly? When they're all in your beautiful ecosystem and you can tap them on the shoulder anytime when they need it. They might need a hug, they might need a kick in the pants, but you can do either. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. So, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was speaking at a conference for New Zealand tertiary sport some months ago, and that was a kind of example that that I shared with them. I think often with the role of AI and so on, there's kind of that fear that can come into people of what's this going to do to my work and so on. So if someone's a trainer or a coach,
fear for their job.
Yeah, where's the technology going to fit in? But that was sort of one of my examples of, well, there's these times in between where you are, in person, obviously, where this sort of technology can fill in the gap. So it's not, not just for those that aren't getting any in-person, coaching, but there's obviously this type of technology can apply in those sort of circumstances. But in terms of what you're doing, I mean, how far do you see that AI can really, can take an app like 28 in terms of, do you have it having a virtual version of you in video that's auto-generated and a virtual, voice and so on in the future? Is that kind of where you go? So you literally are replicated as many customers as you've got? In different languages, if they're in different parts of the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. We're watching it. We're always looking at where the technology's at. If it feels real, if it feels authentic, I'm happy to go there. If you can tell that it's not quite right, I would rather be authentic to the customer. And when they get me, they get me. And when they know it's not me, they know it's not me. I mean, we're dipping our toe in the water from if someone wakes up at 5 a.m. to do their workout and they've they hurt their back yesterday or something at work, and what can I swap this exercise for this exercise for? I think being able to give people instant advice, it can be really powerful. I don't like mushrooms. What should I put in this recipe so it's got the same macros or whatever? I think for that purpose, it's fantastic. As in its current state, I think to actually transport yourself in some kind of physical format. The whole VR thing, it's interesting, but it's as much of a barrier as a wow factor. There's a cost barrier. Do I want to be doing a sweaty workout with a big headset on, or do I just want to press play and go, and following Sam along on a video absolutely suffices for what I need, and it's just a quicker, lower barrier experience. So I think, asking our 28ers what they want, watching the technology, I think is absolutely what we're going to do. We're not going to get left behind with it. But, yeah, the initial personalisation from understanding their behaviour, how often they exercise, what their diet's like, are they a smoker, how do they sleep, and getting a full snapshot of perhaps where they're at most risk and what they benefit the most from. Because people in the fitness industry, it's all about how do I make the medicine taste better? And a big part of it is I don't want to think about it. I just want to wake up and be told what to do. That's why personal trainers have a job. So when I turn up to the gym saying, what are we doing today? Don't want to think about it. The more you can create that in an online world, oh, great. I told him I had 2 hours a week. I could do 4 workouts a week. They needed to be 30 minutes each. And I wanted to be stronger and more flexible. And my plan just got served to me. Fantastic. I told him I was vegetarian, and I am happy to cook my own dinner 3 times a week. Lunches are a real sticking point because I don't eat well at work and I drink too much coffee, and he gave me a plan. That's what people want. And I think the more it can feel personalised just to you and you're not getting this cookie cutter program that everyone else is getting, the better.
Yeah. Well, I think, certainly the technology offers, the ability to achieve that, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. I mean, we're already there. It's the next step that you're talking about that I probably haven't got my head quite around yet. I like it. It excites me. I'm not saying no. I just need to see it in full flight a bit more, I think.
Yeah, and I guess that, there's a lot of pieces to come together, and it'll be interesting to see what happens more broadly, I guess, in this sector. Anything else that jumps out at the role that technology has kind of played in your success? Like, how important do you see the technology having been in terms of what you've achieved so far?
Oh, look, it's been everything. I mean, I'm literally sitting here saying without the technology where it was at, I would not have a business, not a business to where it's at. I just wouldn't have one. I'd be still working in gyms, which I'm very proud of where I've come from, but it would be a very different existence. And I mean, the thing I love about tech is it's so interesting. You don't have to be able to build it to be amazed by it. You don't have to be able to build it to, have a business with it, and I've just loved learning as I go. And, we're starting to use more gamification. We're starting to connect. We're looking to do partnerships with supermarket chains and health insurers where the more you move, the less health insurance you pay. It sort of connects to your rewards points. It gives you real dollars to spend on healthier foods. And, we really want the technology to be the conduit between, if I take better care of myself, I save myself money. If I take better care of myself, I make my life with these, essential day-to-day things that I need to do become easier. And, and then just the way it connects our community. I mean, the way they talk to each other, and then the way tech becomes back to real life. Like we see, these people have had Facebook friendships for 5 years, and next thing they fly in from another country and get picked up from the airport by another 28er and stay at each other's houses and then go back and stay connected through technology. And it's pretty special the way the two worlds can come together.
How much does sort of the technology risks kind of, weigh on you? Because you obviously got to, you have a lot of personal data around
Yeah.
sort of individuals that are using 28. And left, right, and centre, we see data breaches
protection,
and
yeah, sure.
and cybersecurity dramas, and some pretty big scale ones.
Yeah.
In Australia, and New Zealand too.
Yeah.
And how have you kind of tackled that, or is that
Yeah.
something now that you're part of a bigger entity that you can kind of focus on the more innovation and creative sides, and you can leave that to somebody else?
No, we still handle it ourselves, and we always have. It's always been it's hard because it's not sexy. It's not that tangible new feature you can tell your community about, or you can sort of get excited about. But if it goes pear-shaped, the consequences are dire. So we've always been really, really stringent on it. Not whether that's been the website being down for a minute or two. Always saying, if I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and the website's down, and touch wood, it's barely ever happened in 8 years. That's just not good enough. We work so hard to build trust with our customer. That's basically the reason they're with us. They know us and they trust us. Now, that's obviously from a exercise and nutrition guidance perspective, but that carries over into, well, I know you won't do anything wrong with my data. You won't sell my data. You won't pass my data on. So we make sure that we really take care of the customer. I mentioned the big Booper thing that we did. That was a really stringent audit to make sure that if they were going to do something with us on that kind of scale, that we met all the standards that were needed. So that was a really nice moment for us that we passed the test, because that could have sort of made or broken the deal if, no, you guys don't have X, Y, and Z covered. There's no way we can do this. We were sort of really proud of the fact that our tech guys had always run such a tight ship in that aspect. But I mean, you see it happen, like you say, Optus had a howler of one late last year, and it's all over the news for all the wrong reasons, and your customers leave you, and you can spend years and thousands of dollars building that trust, and you can lose it like that in a second. And we're really conscious of it. Try not to, I hate talking about it because I feel like I'm mozzing myself. But touch wood, we've never had any issues, and touch wood, we never do.
Cool. Well, lots that we've touched on. It's been been really, really fascinating. So really, really appreciate it, Sam.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
Now, part of the reason that you're here in New Zealand is to kind of wave the flag a bit for 28 by Sam Wood. So those that are kind of curious and thinking, if I can step up my health and fitness, maybe it's something they should look at. What does it cost, and what do people need to do to have a bit of a do some investigation?
So it's normally $50 a month, but we've got a new 8-week challenge starting, and to sort of celebrate getting a lot of New Zealanders on board, it's nearly half price at the moment. So you can get on board for sort of 50 cents a day. All your workouts, all your recipes, you connect directly with me, you get coached by me and my team. And if any of your viewers and listeners would love to jump on board and give it a try, I'd love to work with them. It really is a very easy, convenient option that you can do from home. And if you've got people out there that are listening and watching going, I actually would benefit from a couple of workouts a week, and Sam seems like a guy that I could try that with, I'd love to work with them.
Great. Well, that's very helpful, and I'm sure there'll be a bit of a boost after your time in New Zealand too.
So they can download the app, or they can head to 28bysamwood.com and join through the website.
Is there an option in there to turn off the Aussie accent and change it for a Kiwi one?
Well, we should go there. We should, like your sat nav. Yeah, we should give people an array of options. Hadn't thought of that.
Just putting it out.
Are you
there,
putting your
Sam,
hand up, Paul? You putting your hand up? You're going to be our New Zealand voice. We have to have a look at that.
I think you probably find some.
Does my accent annoy you?
People than me. I'm not going to comment on that today.
Yes.
I know that cuts both directions.
True.
No, it doesn't. I'm just kidding. Cool. Well, it's been really good.
on you.
Thanks everyone for listening in, and to our show partners, Gorilla Technology, HP Spark, 2 Degrees, and 1NZ. And we'll look forward to catching everybody on the next episode. If you've been watching the stream, then make sure that you jump on to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever your favorite podcast app is, to get the audio. And of course, if you've been listening to the audio, which tends to be most of our audience, then make sure you look out for us on wherever you catch video, YouTube, X, Facebook, and you can follow me for the live streams that come up on LinkedIn. So that's us. Thank you very much, Sam Wood.
Great. Cheers.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.